You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hello everybody, it is Tuesday here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, and whatever day you happen to be checking us out on the podcast or indeed over on the True Penny channel, my name is Darrow O'Connor and you are listening to the only wrestling podcast by people who don't hate wrestling. This is the Wrestling Rewind, episode 125. And as I said, 125 episodes. I genuinely can't believe it. It's funny because I thought I would be out of wrestling podcasts or podcasts in general at this point, but it's thanks to my co-host for keeping me in, the one, the only, the one and all undefeated, Mr. Martin Herty. Martin, thank you so much for everything you do on the show, man, and you're pretty much the reason that I'm still doing podcasting, so thank you.
Now I feel like you're warden, keeping you trapped in this cell.
To be fair, it's a nice cell made out of the Attitude Era, so I'm happy enough. You know, I'll be honest with you, if we were still doing modern wrestling, I don't think I could I don't think I could do that. Like, I mean, with the exception of the odd, dip in to the main product and to AEW and TNA and stuff like that, it's, I think what we're doing is a lot more fun, to be honest with you.
I would agree mostly, but there was some dodgy moments during that WCW arc we did.
Well, look, the thing about it is we've learned our lesson where it's like, right, the podcasts and random episodes of WCW are better, but punishing ourselves to watch Weekly Nitro would probably be a bad idea.
It'd be good for a while. If Nitro had its run where it was genuinely like not just the hottest thing in terms of most viewers, but it was genuinely the most creative, the best show on the go. But
it wasn't.
It was short.
Yeah, no, it's like at least we were able to keep it nice and short. Kind of dip in where it's not horrendous. But yeah, man, I mean, we've learned our lesson. We moved on. The Attitude Era is the way to go. But then again, man, I know a lot of people even who either work in the industry or were fans of it at the time or something like that. And I'm like, cool, you guys keep going and cover the product. But no, I just couldn't. I'll be honest with you. Watching Revolution, we'll get into it, obviously. I mean, I watched it in a 1 hour recap. So full disclosure, I watched it in a 1 hour recap where they had cut it all down into bits and it was still too long. So that's where I'm going in. So I'm just kind of like, Jesus, if I was watching current wrestling, I don't know if I'd be able to stomach it, But we'll get to it. We'll talk about it. But I also have a game to pitch you, Martin. And we're going to do it at the end of the show.
Oh, we're going to do it at the end?
Yeah, we'll do it at the end. Or I can do it now. It's up to you. I mean, because we're like 2 weeks, maybe 5 days away from 2K23.
Yeah, right. That's coming out soon.
Yeah, it's very, very, very soon. So,
coming out on La Féile Fáilte. It's coming out on La Féile Fáilte.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Well,
so, when is that actually? Is that Friday?
It's Friday, yeah.
Oh, damn. Wow, it's next Friday. Okay, so, or Friday, this Friday when you're listening to it on the radio. But, yeah, so that's coming out, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, whatever. But then this other game came across, Martin, that it's the game we always wanted, right? So really, really quick, because I do want to get into Revolution, but I'll spend the first, top of the show here. So, the problem we've been having, or you were having before you got your Xbox, where there was no good wrestling games on the Switch.
Yeah.
There is. It's called Wrestling Empire.
Ah, I remember this now. Yes.
Now, this is made by the same guy who made Wrestling Revolution, right? And Wrestling Revolution is a wild game that Bryn from Nerd to Know Media fame was always talking to me about it. And it was fun. It was fine, but it was on the PC or on Android as well. And the same guy now has made this one, and it's on Steam, Android, and the Switch. So I had to pick this up for the Switch, Baron. It's the wildest thing I've ever played. Genuinely, I mean, just
it's a kind of a compromise thing, isn't it? It's both a wrestling game, but there's also is there like a managerial
yeah. So you have full GM mode, right? You have full career mode, but you actually play the matches. So you book 4 matches and you book storylines all the way through, and then different things can happen. So you can either play a career as the booker, when you have wrestlers talking to you as the booker, as in like coming up and going, I want this. But then you can also be a wrestler starting off in wrestling school to get signed by a promotion. So, I mean, just the expedition mode of it is wild, because you can have any kind of match anywhere, in a bathroom, an airport, a backstage, an office, but also in a ring. Then you could change the ropes to be exploding barbed wire. You can have 100 tables around the ring, fire around the ring, glass all over the ring, thumbtacks, chairs, a gun, a Nintendo 64. Just random stuff. And it's wonderful. But obviously the characters, they're all like legally distinct as well. So there's like obviously Kane, but he's called something else. I can't remember what the name actually is. It's something really funny, but you can actually edit all these as well. And I know with the PC version, there's mods that will do the whole thing for you. But I was just interested to see how far I could push the Switch on it. And you can have, like, I know on the PC, you can have like the ring filled with 100 people. Obviously, the Switch will explode if you do that, so you can't. But you can have 30 in the ring.
Wow.
At the same time. Now, the graphics are pretty poor, but I mean, I think they went and actually just recreated. Well, it's one guy actually. It's also incredibly impressive. It's one guy, but they recreated the feel of No Mercy. So if you're a No Mercy fan, I think you really enjoy it, and I would say it gets a strong recommendation from me for loads of reasons. It's absolutely crazy. The graphics are what they are. It's just really fun. It's just a fun game, and the fact that just so much mad stuff happens in the career mode, that it just has to be played. Now it's €16 on Steam, and it's like €19 on the Switch. It's worth it. I would say, if you're stuck for a wrestling game and you are going to get the new WWE game, well, that looks really good, and I'll get it as well, and we'll do a quick review over here. This is unlike anything I've ever played before. So it's worth your time, I would say. If this is your first time even hearing about it, go on to YouTube and have a look at all the people talking about it. Martin, I can't recommend anything more.
Oh, I'll definitely take a look at that, and that sounds class.
Honestly, it's so silly. But it's also quite good. Like, the combat feels fun. You can have good matches in it. And just the novelty of the fact that, like, you can have a match with light tubes everywhere, and then you use, like, in the ring, and then also change it to a cage match as well, but if anyone lands on the light tube, the match ends, and then they cut a promo after it. It's very hard to explain. It's just anything you can imagine they can do, and that in and of itself is very, very cool.
See, it's one of the issues I have with like the 2K games is that they go so far into the kind of simulation end of things, that they don't become fun to play. It becomes nearly more of a skill to learn how to play them, but there's no like fun element to them. It's kind of put me off them. But this sounds much more like it's something I'd be into. Yeah,
I mean, look, to be honest with you, if you can handle the graphics, Like, that's the trade-off. The graphics are bad for Nintendo 64 standards. I'll put it to you that way. You can see every pixel, but once you move past that, you're like, wow, they're actually really trying something here. And I found it a much more rewarding experience. So I would say, look, if you're looking for a good wrestling game, or even a more let's try it this way. If you're looking for an interesting wrestling experience where you can actually make it WWE, you can make it AEW, you can also set the booking for different periods. So you can be a booker during the Attitude Era. You can be a booker during WCW in the 80s. You can be a booker today. You can be a wrestler today. You can be a wrestler in the Attitude Era. You can be, you can, because it's not, we're only in the WWE, you can actually jump around to ECW, to WCW, that kind of thing, or you can jump around to Impact, AEW, WWE today. That's how deep it is. So I would say if you're looking for a completely different experience, an experience where as a wrestling fan, you can actually just do some mad things which you never thought you'd be able to do with limits. I mean, the entrances are a bit, the music is terrible. It's going to be no buried alive matches or anything like that. But I'll tell you this way, right? There's 100 tables outside the ring, and I had an exploding death match with CM Punk and Terry Funk.
And it was probably a better explosion at the end of it than the one we got on Revolution last year.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. CM Punk powerbombed Terry Funk through the tables onto the exploding ropes, and then the whole thing was covered in fire. Punk won, and they were both on fire afterwards. And then the referee had a Nintendo 64 for no reason. So
I love it. It's the type of thing would be great if you have someone with that level of kind of creativity and a genuine kind of love of wrestling, if they could get like a serious team behind them or a serious kind of financial backing behind them, they could do something really special.
Like, I genuinely don't know if it's just janky, like if the jank is on purpose, because it adds to it, or if it's just kind of the way, because his last wrestling game was kind of similar, but he also made a Jesus game where you hang around with Jesus and you can be crucified as him as well. So that's a bit weird. And there's also another one where you play as like you play as a prisoner, and you can be a prisoner or be a prison guard. So I'm kind of struggling what the link is here, because he has one wrestling game, another wrestling game, and then an MMA game, and then these other two where you're like, I don't know how these link together, but I'm sure they do link together, but I don't really know how. So all I say is, for one guy, absolute powerhouse. And he's managed to make this game, which I'm kind of obsessed with. I cannot recommend it enough. And you'll have just a great time with it. Like, but then again, he could be doing it completely by accident, where it's like he made this masterwork. Like, I'm convinced that's how Watch Dogs 2 was made. They made it completely by accident. They just made this masterwork, and then all the rest of them have been absolutely dire. But yeah, man. I mean, I cannot recommend it enough. It is expensive, but I will say, look, the amount of time and fun you'll have out of it, it's totally worth it. If you have a good PC, or if you have a Steam Deck, probably get it on the Steam Deck, because you can mod it, and that'll probably give you an even better experience. But if you just have a Switch game, and your choice is, Martin, where 2K18, which doesn't run on the Switch, Battlegrounds, which isn't a wrestling game, or this. That's it.
I think the only 2K that actually runs on the Switch is I think it's like 2K14.
Really?
Yeah, it's way.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, look, if you're looking for this could be a modern wrestling game, could be an old school wrestling game, but genuinely, I can't recommend this enough. Look, I'll do a playthrough, put it on the Twitch or the YouTube or something like that, but there's tons of people doing videos on it at the moment, and it's just kind of exploded into its own thing. So I had to bring it up, Martin. I had to say, look, you'll love this, because I know you were disappointed that, there was no 2K coming to it, but even though you have the Xbox now, I think this is the game we've all wanted our entire life.
Yeah, no, it sounds class, and it's just, we should look into maybe doing a a game and episode at some stage because
Oh, for sure.
This is out. 2K23 is coming out soon, and then the AEW game is scheduled for release.
Yeah.
There's no specific date yet, but it's supposed to be the first half of the year.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, look, I think that makes a lot of sense. We'll do that because, there's just the wrestling gaming industry now seems to be on fire at the moment. So I'm looking forward to that. But Martin, let's get to why we're here tonight. To talk about AEW's Revolution. Now, as I said, there were things I enjoyed. There were things I didn't enjoy. There were things I enjoyed, but for different reasons. I don't want to be overly harsh on it because I think that's unfair. I do think that's unfair. But there was a lot of good, but there was a lot of bad. And what I mean by that is, this was the closest thing to a TNA show that I've seen from AEW. And what I mean by that is, and I know you're a huge AEW fan, and I'm not trying to be harsh, but I got TNA flashbacks. And do you want to guess where it happened?
Well, I would imagine the tag match, Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett in it.
No, it happened sooner than that.
Sooner?
Oh, sorry, not sooner. No, yeah, it was sooner. Happened sooner than that.
I don't know. What? I'm a bit of a loss.
It happened at the final burial match.
Oh.
And the problem wasn't the wrestling. That's the thing. The wrestling was unreal. Like, it was a great show. This show suffered from the same thing that used to happen with TNA, which is why I'm looking forward to when we do look at our TNA arc. You'll kind of see what I'm talking about. It didn't need that. It was a good match, but it was like, so there was a match in TNA called what was it called? The Last Rites match. Sting versus Abyss, right?
Oh,
and that's all, like, because neither one of them have a gimmick where, they're in a. Neither one of them have a gimmick that involves a grave. And this was
where the coffin was like lowered down into the ring on like these wires, and then
we might actually watch that next week for the laugh, because this is where I was just like, oh no, they're really. They haven't learned. I wouldn't be surprised if Russo was like secretly getting a paycheck for that, because like, I love Christian Cage and Jungle Boy is great. The right decision happened, but this could have been a hardcore match. Could have been a cage match. Could have been a ladder. Actually, a ladder match would have made more sense. Why wasn't it a ladder match? When they started going through, I'm like, wait, why is there a casket? Oh no. So that's when my concern kind of, because that's the problem when I watch AEW. If anything weird starts happening like that, I immediately get like Impact flashbacks where I'm like, oh no, we've been here before. And that's when it happened. The Jeff Jarrett thing, I was kind of happy that he got a paycheck and they all had a good time falling around, But another point when it happened was in the Texas Death Match. Hangman Page was class. Again, the right decision was done. Have him go over Jon Moxley. The length of the match was a bit long, and I don't think the spots were extreme enough in certain points. So as I said, to get the overall picture. So I watched it in an hour, super thing to get a feel of the show, and then I went back and watched these matches, and anything that I'm going to talk about, I went back and watched again, and I actually watched this match in full, and I was like, okay. So this was kind of worked the same. So let's start here. This was worked the same way as an Abyss match from TNA, where it's like has a kind of.
I think you have PTSD when it comes to TNA.
Yeah, maybe, but this is the problem when I'm watching AEW. It automatically triggers it, because it's like I just see them doing stuff that they haven't learned from, and it's good or bad. Like when the lads do stuff from WCW, well, it's unbelievable, but they still fall into that pocket where you're like, oh, okay, and I don't know. actually, my overall question is the stipulations. Where the stipulations just because I don't watch Rampage or Dynamite week to week. Were the stipulations justified? That's my question, actually.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So, like, I mean, we'll run through the stipulations quickly.
Yeah.
The Ricky Starks Chris Jericho match was the Jericho Appreciation Society are banned from ringside. I mean,
that made sense. Yeah.
Self-explanatory. They kept running in and interfering in matches. The
Yeah.
final burial match was, I think, a reference to the fact that Christian Cage kept making reference to or taking the piss out of Jack Perry's father, the late Luke Perry. You know, we talk about how his dad's down in hell and his dad's, embarrassed of him and, all this kind of thing. And I think that's why they went with the final burial first. Because actually, it was interesting that you didn't like the gimmick of it, because I thought it's one of the few times where AEW have gone for a big physical gimmick and it's really worked out for them. So
I didn't say I didn't like it. I actually really liked it. I love stupid gimmicks, but
a big physical gimmick.
Yeah.
Like, so obviously everyone knows the thing with the exploding ring, didn't come off very well. Jericho got poofed off the top of the cell, come off very well. Like, they have this problem where they aim for these really big, ambitious physical gimmicks, and they have a tendency, to not go to plan.
Yeah.
I thought this one was fantastic. It worked really well. Firstly, it gave them something different on the set, so differentiated that from the Dynamite set. But what really got me was when he threw him in the coffin and he slammed it shut. The coffin instantly sort of rockets down into the grave with this puff of smoke, and I thought it was just the right amount of sports entertainment.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant on this show, because this show, you had your wrestling matches, your straight up solid wrestling matches. You had your trios, lunatic cocaine banger matches. You had your hardcore Phil with the Texas Death Match, and then you had your just incredible in-ring storytelling with the main event. So the other big kind of gimmick, obviously apart from the Iron Man match, was, as you said, the Texas Death Match. And yeah, I think it really suited them, because these two, Mox and Hangman, they've had 3 matches previously, and they were all straight up normal matches. And in one of them, Hangman got legitimately knocked out. And in the previous one, the two of them had a really good, rough wrestling match that ended with John Moxley getting a kind of not a roll-up, but it was like a technical pinning maneuver. And Hangman was sort of giving out to him for that, saying, we went out there for a fight. You're always talking about bloody knuckles and broken bones, and you wanted to end it with a roll-up, So I think that's why they went with the Texas Death Match for that one. It was to strip away any wrestling, essentially, and just have these two lads go out and batter another, and come out with a pinfall, submission, or knockout victory.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I thought the whole thing, I thought the show as a whole flowed really well. You had that really nice mix of different matches, different styles, different stipulations. And a match that ended with an Iron Man match that went over an hour. I thought this was by far their best paced show. Like, everything went by really quickly. Like, I was genuinely surprised when this was over. It was paced perfectly, and it's one thing I'd say as to go forward. Like, this type of format is definitely something to stick with because it makes everything in the show much more impactful.
Yeah, look, less definitely is more. And it's good that they've kind of like realized that, because I mean, no matter how much of a big fan you are, at a certain point, enough is too much. Sorry, too much is too much. Particularly with an Iron Man match. Historically, like, yeah, they still kind of stack the card, not in a good way. Like, I mean, you go back and you'll watch the way Iron Man matches usually are done. There's usually 3 other matches on, and that's it. But again, I really like the Wardlow Joe match. That was fantastic. Like, genuinely, probably one of the matches of the night for me. I said I really like the Final Burial match. The House of Black tag team match was class. Like, genuinely, actually class.
Do I'm so conflicted on the House of Black because
no, man, they're so
no,
cool.
no, in a good way, because
Okay.
I think they're so awesome as a trios team. Like, I want to see them go on a dominant run with those belts. But at the same time, my God, do I want to see a Brody King singles run? That guy is legitimately terrifying.
You know what, though? I think they kind of needed to get some momentum back.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe that's why they gave him the win. So, yeah, I think that will come. A big problem is, though, like, there needs to be overall the actual pay-per-view week by week kind of thing. And it didn't have, there was just something missing. I don't know what it was. I don't know if you got it or not, like, but you know the way when you're watching a show, it's like, okay, that really kind of meant something. A lot of this kind of had at certain points had that, and I think the Hangman Page, John Moxley match was perfect in that way. The Ricky Stark, the Jungle Boy match had that, but MJF gone over Danielson.
Oh, honest to God, think this was a masterpiece.
The match was right, but I guess I'm trying to figure out where they go now. Like, so are they trying to build MJF? So my question is MJF, is the plot with MJF to build him up as a massive heel where someone has to try beat him, or is he trying to prove himself that he just deserves it? And that was, I was like, Taz was on commentary the whole night, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was. Taz terrible. And again, actually, that's probably why I have so much. No, this is probably why I had so much TNA flashbacks as well, because Taz is again screaming in my ear about things, and I'm like, please go away, Taz. Like, but yeah,
I think it's perfect because you have your guy who's calling the match, you have your color commentator guy, and then you have Taz there, who's just like he's like some guy who was walking past and decided to sit down and watch it with them, and every so often interjects with something, but his interjections are always either ridiculously stupid, like some terrible joke or pun, or they're like really overly like medical examinations of a move that's been done. He goes the full route that Gorilla Monsoon used to do. Hitting them there in the gluteus maximus and drop there is that'll really affect the mandula oblongate. He come out with these really intricate medical terms, but I think he adds just a lovely sprinkling of just random magic to the commentary booth.
You see, though, I don't know if you watch Botchamania, where it's like insipid Taz comment. Yeah, like, the thing about it is, I've experienced insipid Taz comments for years. So for me, it's not cute anymore. It's like, oh, how do you keep getting a job? I mean, I don't know how people keep hiring him. It's like, please just stop. Like, Giovanni is, enough with, by himself. Dig out Joey Styles if they want someone. Just like, here's more money. Go over and do it. But I don't know. Just Taz, I just can't. He's like King, but like he's like King in a bad way. Like 2007 King. Not like, well, sorry, you know what I mean. Not
But
Attitude Era King.
the commentary booth is an interesting one
It
because
is, yeah.
more and more we've seen Jim Ross only come out for specific matches.
Yeah.
He hasn't done Dynamite in months. He sort of mainly does Rampage, and I suspect because it's only an hour long, and even now when he's doing the pay-per-views, this is the first pay-per-view where I've seen he's only come out for part of it. So I suspect that maybe he's not feeling up to it anymore.
Yeah, no, I kind of got that sense as well, actually. Like, it's just, it's annoying because, like, I mean, it's just Taz. He's like, he should not be a commentator. You know, I'd rather have Booker T. Like, I don't, or Chet Lemon and Black Snow. You know, when that was Booker T and Kevin Nash in their alter egos in TNA doing commentary than Taz, and that was one of the worst commentary segments of all time. And it's just infuriating for me, really, to watch AEW repeat history again, and I'm like, no, stop.
That is one of your blind spots. He's a bit like Cody Rhodes. Wouldn't matter what he did. He just you're never gonna like him.
No, I think that's unfair. The Cody Rhodes one, I'm willing to agree with you. I mean, I could do anything, and I just never want to see him again. With Taz, it's just kind of like
Back as Stardust.
Oh, if he came back as Star Man, I'd pop unbelievably. I'm like, give him all the belts, every one of them. You know, it's just one of those things. You know, it's so it'll be. That's I just wanted to bring that up. I had to say it because the whole time I was like, oh, shut up. But you know, he'll never be Don West. I'll tell you that much. The great Don West, the late great Don West. But actually, sorry. Funny thing about Don West before we go on. When you go to the Impact Zone, he'd be there selling because that was his job. He ran the merch stand in between the shows, and he'd just have like these specials that he'd just give out to people. There you go.
Specials? What do you mean? Like
oh, like, you know, this week we have a T-shirt and the best of TNA 2003, and then like there's like a random grab bag that he'd just have, and he'd be like, oh, "This is for tenner." Yeah, because that was his job beforehand. So it's just class. Taz has none of that endearing features. He's just incredibly annoying. But you know, it is what it is.
In terms of the show as a whole, I have to say I was genuinely surprised to hear you be so measured in your comments and your view on it, because while I didn't think the build to this show was great, the build kind of suffered. But I mean, it's kind of understandable. They're sort of only now kind of recovering from the whole Punk Elite injuries.
That's why I'm being so measured with it, because the entire company nearly went under and they had to rebuild, and they realized, wait, if we actually build who we have here, we'll actually be all right. And that's why I'm being so measured on it.
Well, this is what I loved about this show, because like I said, the build wasn't fantastic, and I'm like I say, I'm a huge fan. So if I'm saying it, like, you can be sure that it wasn't. But my God, this was genuinely one of the best pay-per-views I've ever seen. It's like, my God. In terms of matches, this was, to paraphrase our own Sheamus, this was just banger after banger after banger. I thought it was a tremendous mix of different styles. I mean, it's received like universal or almost universal critical acclaim. It's one of the few shows Meltzer has ever covered. Now, I know Meltzer's is only his opinion, but it's a good sort of barometer to use. You don't have to take his view as gospel, but it's a good barometer to use. And this is one of the few shows I can remember him ever doing that has 3 5-star plus rated matches on it.
No, that's fair. Like,
you know, you're talking 8 matches. 3 of them are stars and over. The rest of them are, it's a lot of 4s and 4.5s, and you're really talking 1 or 2 matches that were in around 3. Like this was. I maybe it was partly down to the low expectations because the build wasn't that great. Maybe it was partly down to being a little bit apprehensive over an Iron Man match, because if they're not done well, they can be long, tedious, grueling affairs. But
yeah,
this thing started. Ricky Starks, Chris Jericho, brilliant way to kick off the show. With just like a real solid wrestling match, a solid, straightforward face heel match. A cool wee move pulled out by Ricky Starks at the end of it to block the Judas effect, which wasn't a big move. Nobody's going to get injured doing it, but it was just such a class wee move, very in keeping with his character. And from the moment that match started, this pay-per-view just flew for me.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, like, I wouldn't be that positive on it. I would say that it's worth watching the main matches in this, definitely, and in its entirety, not the way I initially watched it. I think that's an unfair way to judge it. But I mean, for me, it suffers from taking away the TNA the TNA side of it, because I mean that's also unfair to judge it as well. You could have cut the Ricky Stark Jericho match. You could have cut the women's match. To be completely frank with you, you could have cut the tag team match, and that actually would have been and I would have moved the Warlow Samoa Joe match to the pre-show. So you would have Jungle Boy, the final burial match, the trios tag team, the death match, and then the armor match. That would have been a tighter package, and then I would have agreed with you because that would have been banger after banger in a nice package that would have been a lot shorter.
But then again, like the thing with AEW, you have to remember is that these only come along every 3 months.
I know.
So they have
I know. Yeah.
A lot of story to pay off. A lot of guys to get on the show.
And you know what they should have done there, actually, or what they could look into doing, particularly when Ring of Honor starts like cooking or whatever, or even just do 2-night shows, because I mean, if these are supposed to be equivalent to big WWE shows, do it over 2 nights, because or you could move a lot of these guys to Ring of Honor. I mean, Ricky Starks and Jericho really feels like a Ring of Honor match. It didn't feel like a Ring of Honor pay-per-view match. It didn't feel like it belonged where it belonged.
We're going to see a lot of these. So Ring of Honor has officially kicked off. Yeah. I think this week last week was the first week that the weekly show was going, and they have a Supercard of Honor, I think, now at the end of March. So you're going to see a lot of guys move over to Ring of Honor. One of the interesting things that happened after the pay-per-view on Dynamite this week was Bryan Danielson gave this amazing promo about how Danielson ended the Iron Man match in MJF's Salt of the Earth, and it wasn't a case of him like heroically holding out and then passing out from the pain. He tapped. It was a clear submission, and he says that in the run-up to this match, MJF had been talking about how Danielson doesn't care about his family. He's out there wrestling these ridiculous matches. He has this history of CTE and brain injuries, and he's out there like putting his whole life on the line for these matches. And Danielson talks about how he was in the Salt of the Earth. It's for anyone who doesn't know, it's kind of like a modified armbar. And he was thinking about that. He was going, yeah, this guy's going to rip my arm off, and I'm not going to be able to lift my kids. I'm not going to be able to play with them and be the father I should be. And he said, that really made me think. And I think I need to go home. I just got up and left. So people are wondering, is he just going to go away for a while and recover? When he says he's going to go home, is he going to go to Ring of Honor? Is that where he's going to show up? Although I would say personally, I think putting Bryan Danielson on Ring of Honor would be a bit of a waste.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. I just, if you own both, it's kind of like there is the justification to have to kind of have the traveling thing, kind of going between to create some kind of continuity. But
Yeah. I think one of the things they're doing with Ring of Honor though is that they're aware that they have like a pretty huge roster, and they're going to try and draw a fairly definitive line between AEW and Ring of Honor. So if they're on Ring of Honor, it's going to be primarily Ring of Honor.
No, and I mean that's fair, but I was, the way NXT did it, where they had Finn Balor kind of drop down, and he had Ziggler and stuff drop down.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't really a problem with that for journeyman wrestlers who want the challenge. Kind of what they were doing with Chris Benoit in 2006 with ECW. That was the story, and same with Kurt Angle. That was literally the story they were telling. And that kind of gave the rub then to Punk and Johnny Nitro and stuff like that as well. So, or Johnny Morrison, Johnny Nitro. Yeah,
it was Johnny. Wait for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, yeah, like those kind of things have been done in the past and are a kind of cool way to kind of have that kind of link between the two without going the full whole hog where it's still separate, but some guys can kind of show up. But yeah, I mean, particularly with these pay-per-views, I'm a big fan of doing 2 nights anyway, particularly when it's a show this stacked. Also, doing a show on a Saturday as well is like a much better idea. The more shows that are on a Saturday, man, I'll be honest with you, the better.
100% with you there. I'm not actually a huge fan of the 2-night thing, but right. I'm 100% with you on the Saturday, like, for the love of God. Particularly coming from Tony Khan, like, the guy's from England.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that he hasn't, like, he's like, oh, finally WWE make the right decision. He goes back 20 years, It's like, it's crazy.
And WWE's shown, so one of the reasons that they kept going back to Sundays, because AEW initially did Saturday nights.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that they went back to Sundays was apparently it's just the data shows that in the US you get more pay-per-view buys on a Sunday night than a Saturday night. I mean, I would suspect that has changed, given that WWE does so many Saturday shows now, and they all seem to be doing perfectly fine. Yeah,
actually, more than perfectly fine. Royal Rumble was the most successful pay-per-view of all time. So it's like the only thing about it is, though, they were never going to break that mold. Like AEW were never going to break that mold. So, by WWE doing it, they might actually change that. You know what they should do as well? Just going to put it out there. Tuesday pay-per-views. Big fan of Taboo Tuesday. Someone needs to do that. Why is no one doing that? Do Taboo Tuesday or Cyber Tuesday or something. I mean, if AEW are listening by some miracle, do a pay-per-view where you have people voting on social media. That would be amazing. I'd watch it, and I wouldn't care if Cody Rhodes showed up. Actually, I'd be very surprised if he showed up because he's in WWE. But that's how much I would watch that show.
But here's the thing. So let's say any company decided to do one of those shows. Would you actually believe it? Like, would you not just assume that it has been gimmicked to the hilt?
Well, look, the thing about it is, I mean, no, the way WWE do it now, where they have like a fan match and it's like a false count anywhere, hardcore in a street fight. It's like, that's the same match. The same match. No, I mean, like, honestly, the way to book that show, if you do it once a year, is legitimately book it. Book the 3 outcomes and actually do it properly. Because, I mean, why not? Like, it's a little bit extra work, but it's going to be one night. Just say, like, okay, let's say AEW were doing it, right? And, for all intents and purposes, the AEW World Tag Team Championship would be the best match to do it in, right? You have to think, okay, who's it going to be? The good, who's going to, win that belt, or who's going to defend the belt? Those 3 teams you could just pick and go, right, who's going to go defend it, or what's the match going to be? Cage match, hardcore match, or some other silly kind of match that's there. What's the difference between the stipulation or the teams? Because you're going to do it anyway. You can still have the guns win anyway, and that's where I'm kind of like, you could do it in that way. Maybe not do it for the whole show, even though it still would be fun. But I mean, WWE could do it definitely to push their app, which I don't understand a company that has an app and doesn't push that. You could even say, the voting's only for the network subscribers. Again, that's a good way to drive traffic. But AEW, being completely separate, could do it on Twitter. They could have polls, and then I wouldn't blame them for gimmicking it, but I'd believe it.
So I think one of the issues with that is, so it takes in two things that scare me. The first is when you have any kind of shoot element to wrestling, because it just makes me think of the Brawl for All.
Brawl for All.
And the other,
that's fair. That is really fair, yeah.
The other is when you turn to the internet for suggestions, and you come out with Boaty McBoatface.
Well, this is why I think having some kind of barrier to entry, like you set up a website or whatever, and you're watching this. Okay, right, this way. You set up, like, in order to vote, you need to have bought the pay-per-view, right? So, or their app or whatever, and you go in through the app. But if it's pay-per-view, it needs a little number. You put the number in, bang, there you go. I mean, you can do it. It's just like, for like WWE doing it, we're so ahead of their time, and now they kind of just don't want to do it. But like AEW are full of smart marks. That's the brand. They're on the internet. They know how to use it. They know how all this stuff works. I don't know why they don't. I don't know why you wouldn't want to be part of that show. For me, it just makes sense.
Here's the thing. So I think for an audience interactive show where the audience gets to decide what the match is, I think the only way you're going to get people compelled in that is if one of the options is something ridiculous. Like if one of the options is something that, oh my God, the company would never actually do this, let's vote for it.
Yeah.
So let's say you set up Hangman and Wardlow, and you go, all right, tonight the audience gets to decide. They're either going to have a Falls Count Anywhere match, or a cage match, or an electric eel match. And then everyone...
I'd vote for the electric eel match.
Exactly. So everyone could vote. So then the way you do it is you have the two lads go, look, it's going to be the electric eel match. So they'll work out how to do an electric eel match.
But see, the thing about it is, that's fun. And I just, basically, when I was looking at this show, in order to avoid, either kind of, it's all about differentiation. When you're watching it, I will have to say the production was quite good. The show overall was very good. I will say, I have some criticisms here and there. I think your approach to it is probably a lot more accurate. But when I was watching the whole time, I'm like, how can they differentiate themselves further or take advantage of their unique position? Because when you're watching Impact, not Impact. See, it just happens. When you're watching AEW, you're watching AEW. It's very similar to when you're watching WCW. You knew you were watching WCW. You know what I mean? So
you have PTNASD.
And it's going to be worse when we're going back and reliving it, man. But I am excited for you to watch this stuff, so you're like, oh, that's what happened. That's why.
Whenever we go back and do TNA, we need to do rather than podcast, we need to do a video podcast so that the audience can get the full effect of your traumatized 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, I mean, look, after we get through the worst of it, and you'll be like, oh, that makes sense. When we watch the Doomsday Chamber of Blood match, you're going to be like, oh, that's why you're so critical. Which features Test, the Punisher Andrew Martin.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I know. It's wild, man. But yeah, look, as I said, if you guys haven't seen this show yet, I would definitely recommend the Texas Death Match. The final burial match, despite how kind of weird it looks, it's still actually very good. The Iron Man match is actually unreal. Wardlow and Samoa Joe. Again, I wanted Samoa Joe to win, but I am glad Wardlow won. That made a lot more sense. To put them over. The women's match, cool to see Saraya out there, but overall, was what it was. Martin, I'm not going to ask your rating on this because I already know it's like an A triple star plus a million stars. So
100%.
am I right? Yeah.
I kind of agree with you on the women's match. I actually liked it. I thought it was very good. It was not like the level of, the real heavy hitters in this match.
Yeah.
But the main thing for me with it was almost relief that Saraya went out and hasn't had a great run so far. Been a lot of ring rust in her matches, but she went out in this and had a genuinely really good performance. So I was, if nothing else, I was just kind of relieved to see that and to see that she still has it and that she's kind of maybe shaking off some of that ring rust.
Yeah, no, I think it's her best performance genuinely in years. One of her best performances ever. Like that women's division needed someone like Saraya. And it's kind of good to see that it was very high up in the card as well. Well, actually midway in the card, and the crowd seemed to love it as well. So hopefully they can build on it and kind of go from there as well. Have I missed anything? I don't think we missed anything, have we?
Well, we the tag team match
yes.
again,
yes.
4-way for the world titles. I thought it was good. A lot of fun, like any match with Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett and Orange Cassidy and Danhausen is always a great fact. And then it ended with, and I was hugely relieved to see this because normally I don't bother with contract stuff. I think if people get a better deal somewhere, like they should go for it. But I was hugely relieved to see that at the end of this match, FTR came out. So FTR.
Oh yes.
AEW. What you might find fun, and I know you don't watch the weekly AEW, but next week on Dynamite, Orange Cassidy is taking on Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, I'll be watching that.
The All Atlantic title.
I'll be watching that.
And I honest to God think there's a chance Jarrett might win it.
I hope he does with a guitar shot.
Cassidy has done so well with that title. Like he has really made that title, but he's ready. He's ready to sort of move up the card.
Oh, man.
And Jeff Jarrett with that belt he'd be an amazing heel with that belt. Like he'd walk with that thing, acting like it was bigger than the world title.
I can't wait for you to see his TNA run as the champion. But no, one thing I really did actually kind of enjoy, the Guns. One of them is actually Billy Gunn's son in real life. I don't know who it is. Sorry, what?
Are they not both?
Are they both?
I thought they were both his kids.
Oh, no, just Colton is.
Oh.
Yeah, Colton is. Austin isn't. Oh wait, no, he might be. I think they both are. Anyway, I don't know. I'm having a look here on Wikipedia, and it just says Anyway, I just thought that was kind of. Yeah, I just thought that was kind of fun because I was like, oh, that's cool. I mean, I don't know why he isn't managing the two of them, but maybe.
Oh yeah, see, because you don't watch the weekly, you've missed the whole story there.
Right.
They were originally a kind of a group with the Acclaimed,
okay.
And Billy Gunn went with the Acclaimed rather than his own kid.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Actually, the whole story with the Guns and the Acclaimed has been fantastic.
Okay,
but
that's pretty fun.
Looking forward to FTR beating the living hell out of them and taking titles.
No, FTR are a serious team, so it's great to see them back. But yeah, man, I mean, that's it. That's it for this week. Again, a little bit different show. We had to do our AEW show because, we'd be remiss to talk about it, genuinely.
I would strike if we don't.
Well, look, man, I mean, I'm glad I watched it. It's just because with WWE, it's either going to be very bad or very good. With AEW, it's going to always be very good, but might trigger my TNA PTSD.
The NASD.
TNASD. It might just happen. But folks, before we get out of here, you go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com, thewrestlingrewind.com. We'll take you to a link tree with all of our social media and our Patreon. Martin, tell the good people about our Patreon tiers.
Oh, Patreon tiers are fantastic. So after last week's revelation about what is actually said at the start of X-Pac's intro video, we've set up the lowest level tier, which is just €1. One simple X-Pac euro. And it's for anyone out there who didn't know that the opening sort of battle cry of X-Pac's theme is actually make some noise and not X-Pac. And I think €1 is a humble token to offer to admit not only that you personally didn't know it, but now you have a lovely little bit of trivia that you can pull out at parties and weddings, and everyone will be fascinated by it. So €1 is a very fair price for that. Our second tier is something that Dara, you've crafted yourself. If you want to tell us about the Buhili list. This is the €2 Buhili list. So you'll get to give us your list of Buhili, and we'll not only read them out and get through them on the show, but we'll also give our kind of takes on them and whether we'd have them in our Buhili stable. And you never know, we might even do an episode revealing our own Buhili lists someday.
And the thing about it is, it can be from any generation. It can be WCW, ECW, AEW, TNA, WWE.
Yeah. Although if you do it
Doesn't matter.
if you do a TNA Buhili list, it's actually €3 because the extra euro goes towards Dara's therapy treatment.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. And the final one we have is the Sunday Night Heat review show. So if you guys are listening to our normal timeline, we have to cover Heat, right? But eventually Heat is going to move away because it's fantastic so far and it's essential, but eventually it's going to fall into like the doldrums. So we're like, right, we'll still watch Heat, but in order to do that, we're going to put it up on the Patreon first as its own kind of thing. But here's the thing. We're doing these shows anyway. So if you can spare anything over, that would be great to kind of, give us some kind of motivation to keep going and, look at more terrible wrestling at certain points, but also look at amazing wrestling, which we do. And when we start getting to TNA, we'll be pushing this a lot harder because, therapy bills are expensive.
Can't be doing TNA for free.
No, absolutely not. That probably be a tier in and by itself. But guys, if you want to help us out there, Nerd to Know Media is what this is under, because obviously the show's part of Nerd to Know Media. And so we'll be back next week to talk about, I think it's the last show before WrestleMania 15, isn't it?
It's the last or the second, might be the second last, but it's the final sort of couple of furlongs of Raw and Heat up till WrestleMania 15.
Oh man, I cannot wait. It's going to be great. It's funny because we're like nearly matching up with actual WrestleMania now. So it's like, okay.
So almost like we know what we're doing.
Absolutely. That's it. But folks, if anything else you want to for us to cover, any comments like that, social media, we're getting better at it eventually. Follow us over Nerd to Know Media on Instagram. Like us on Facebook as well. The links are all at thewrestlingrewind.com. He's been Martin. I've been Dara. We'll see you next week here on The Wrestling Rewind. Bye, guys.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.